So I'll go first because mine will be relatively quick. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to give our so far Big Ten Player of the Year, Sixth Player of the Year, Freshman of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, and Coach of the Year up to this point. Big Ten Player of the Year, Meghan, I think we're going to agree on this one. Caitlin Clark leads the conference in scoring, assists, threes per game. Iowa is 19-2 right now. I mean, how can you beat that, right? And she's got an opportunity to become the number one scoring leader in NCAA history on the women's side. And she has the chance to do it outright, depending on how long she continues to play. Sixth Player of the Year. This one took me a minute. I'm going to go Sydney Falter. Yeah. Were you thinking the same thing?
Yeah, that's mine too.
Okay. Great minds think alike. More than 6 rebounds off the bench. And just her impact on the game that goes beyond the box score. I'm just really impressed with what she's able to do. Freshman of the Year, I have blank. So I'm really interested to see where Meghan goes with this. Coach of the Year, I'm between two. Robin Freilich and what she's able to do in Michigan State in her first season, and then Carolyn Keeger at Penn State. So those are my two right now that I kind of have going back and forth. I mean, and we're just talking about this last weekend. Michigan State beats Michigan. I know that's a big rivalry. And then Penn State over Maryland. And both of these games were blowouts.
40-point almost, yeah.
So that's what I have on my list. So now that Meghan, you go next, and then Robbie will get you on the backside.
My Player of the Year, Caitlin Clark. I mean, this is no surprise. She'll likely be National Player of the Year. 32 points a game now, I think, after this weekend's performance. She's about 2 weeks away from breaking the all-time scoring record in women's college basketball. And I think she's about a month away from potentially breaking Pete Maravich's record, which is insane. So that's kind of a no-brainer in the terms of midseason awards and what will likely happen in the next month or so. Sixth Woman of the Year, also going with Sydney Falter for Iowa. I was not high on Iowa coming into the season at all because they lost so much, but yet they're almost in better shape at this point now than they were at this point a season ago, which is crazy to think. But Sydney Falter coming off the bench, bringing that boost. She literally spends most of her time on the floor because she's diving everywhere, trying to create second chance opportunities, getting loose balls. I love her effort on the boards. She does so many little things that don't show up in the stat sheet that are massive when it comes to winning ball games. Coach of the Year, I'm actually between two as well, but my two are Robin Freilich from Michigan and Dawn Plitzawhite from Minnesota. Both first-year head coaches, both have done really great jobs early on with what we thought weren't a ton on their rosters, but they've really kind of shown that there is a lot of talent on both of those rosters, and they've won some big games so far this season. So I'm curious to see how they kind of continue to lead over the course of the month of February. And then Defensive Player of the Year, I would go with Sarah Williams right now from Wisconsin and her ability. I know you and I had that Iowa-Wisconsin game, Zora. Williams' ability to time up her blocks has been much improved from a season ago. She's doing a better job of defending without fouling and just being in the right position down low. Did I miss anything else?
No, that was it. I had a question on mine, Defensive Player of the Year. I had Sarah Williams as well. And then I had somebody from Ohio State, question mark?
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Just because anytime you are calling an Ohio State game, you are constantly asking the opponent how you're going to deal with their defense, specifically the press. So I don't know if you can give it to a whole team, but that's the other thing I had, Sarah Williams / somebody from Ohio State. So Robbie,
all right,
fill us in.
Yeah, I think the Player of the Year is pretty easy. It's going to be Zach Edey again. He's a walking 23 and 12 every time he takes the floor. He just went over 2,000 points and 1,000 rebounds, which puts him in pretty rare air. He's going to be the National Player of the Year again. He's definitely going to be the Big Ten Player of the Year again. He is having another outstanding year. And I think the impressive thing about what Zach Edey has done is that I feel like he's better this year than he was last season. Sixth Man of the Year, a little bit. This is always a tough one. I think I'm going to go C.J. Wilcher at Nebraska. He's been really impactful off the bench for the Cornhuskers. He's shooting it way better like he did 2 years ago. I've got Nick Martinelli in that category. I think Mason Gillis would have to be in that discussion. John Blackwell out of Wisconsin as well. Let's see, defensive player of the year. I'm going to go Ace Baldwin. The way that he takes the ball from other teams is pretty impressive. He's had games of like 8 steals. He leads the Big Ten in steals by a wide margin. Penn State certainly has brought a different style of play this year to the Big Ten Conference. So I'm going to go with him, even though I think Cliff Amore, I think Zach Edey is in that conversation as well. Coleman Hawkins has gotten himself into the defensive, I think the all-defensive team conversation, as his Chucky Hepburn / Max Klesmit from Wisconsin. Freshman of the year, I'm going Owen Freeman from Iowa. He's like the 5 or 6 time Big Ten Freshman of the Week. I think Mackenzie Mbako would be considered for that. I also think John Blackwell out of Wisconsin has had a really good freshman year. And then my Big Ten Coach of the Year, I'm going to go Greg Gard. I think Greg Gard has done a phenomenal job with this Wisconsin Badger team. They're currently in first place. Matt Painter would be in that discussion. Chris Collins, Fred Hoiberg as well. I think Brad Underwood would get thrown in there with kind of how he's handled some adversity with his roster this year, not having Terrence Shannon for his suspension and still keeping that team afloat. So I'll go with Gard, but those are my midseason picks.